Hey guys, Joe here of the Madden Sports Podcast. I'm joined this morning by Katie Mox, host of the Betting Exchange. Katie, how's the morning treating you?
Hey Joe, so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's going pretty good. Today is my day off, but I'm happy to be talking with you. It's getting pretty warm here in New York, and that's exciting because, as you know, as an East Coaster, it gets pretty cold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up in Canada, so I know the feeling when we actually get sunshine. We definitely have to enjoy it, Katie. Now, Katie, you have so much going on. You're the host of the Betting Exchange. That is going phenomenal. You're doing a fantastic job there. I have to tip my hat to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really, really great. It's been a phenomenal experience. It's my first time, on television being a host. I started kind of the same way that you did too, just on Instagram and on social media, giving out plays and just kind of testing things out. And now I get to talk about it on television every day. So it's really exciting, and it's been such a cool journey.
Absolutely. Let's hear about this journey. Where did the love and the passion come from, Katie?
Yes. So I've always been a very big San Francisco 49ers fan, which I know that you know, and you could tell in my background, there's a lot of SF going on here. And so I was a season ticket holder for the Niners with my dad and my two brothers for many years. Even though I lived in Los Angeles, I would fly up to every single home game. And I found that I knew everything that there was to know about the Niners. I knew so much about their division, the NFC West, but I didn't really know or care too much about anything that was like outside of what I kind of focused on. So, like I didn't know anything about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers before, of course, Tom Brady went there. I mean, they were kind of a little bit of a throwaway team at that point. So I started the way that everybody does, right? With fantasy sports. It's really like the gateway drug where you kind of dip your toe into gambling and you start learning about different players and different teams and kind of getting more excited about things outside of your division or your specific team that you love. And then I started working with this guy on, well, I say this guy, he's quasi famous. His name is Bob Menery. He's a sports comedian. Now he's a podcast host with the Nelk Boys, the Full Send podcast. But at the time, he had a gambling show that he did, and he was also launching a podcast. I believe that was called the Ripper Magoo podcast. And they needed a girl that lived in Los Angeles that was knowledgeable about sports. And I didn't follow him at the time. He had like 2 million followers, but a bunch of my friends did. And so literally 5 people kept sending me this post being like, you would be great at this. And I remember I looked at it and I thought, you know what? I would be great at this. So I threw my hat in the ring. I was working in public relations. I'd worked in PR for about 15 years. I was a director of beauty and fashion and did a little bit of lifestyle stuff, but I wasn't that happy in what I was doing for probably the last 5 years or so. But you know how it goes when you work yourself up to a certain position, you've been doing it for so long and you're good at it and you're making the money that a director would make. What are you going to do? You're going to start over and make $30,000 a year, doing something entry level. So I felt stuck. I didn't really know what to do. This opportunity came up to work with Bob Menery and potentially be on his podcast. So I just DM'd him and was like, hey, I'm interested in the opportunity. I never thought that I would hear from him because he's got 2 million followers. He responded to me right away. I auditioned for it and I made it all the way to the end. It was between me and this other girl to be the co-host on the podcast. Now I ended up losing on the podcast, but she was a professional soccer player and Olympian and had like 100,000 followers. So if you're gonna lose to somebody, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? That's like losing to Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, it's like fine. But he was like, hey, we think you're great. We still want to work with you. Do you do any gambling? And I didn't, but I was like, I can learn, I've done fantasy, I can figure it out. And so I did. I started creating content for him and this guy to be bounced back on their, it was called The Gambling Show. They had a different account, did that for a while. And I really liked it. And I also realized that, I liked being in front of the camera, that I loved to give my game analysis. And so it just really started as like a passion project for me and a creative outlet because I wasn't really that happy in what I was doing for a living anymore. And then it kind of started to grow. Of course, the pandemic hit, right, in 2020. And at the time, I was working in film PR. So we were doing a lot of PR and marketing around home video. So after it comes out in the theaters, it gets released to digital and DVD. And we were doing a lot of those campaigns. But as you know, movies stopped. There was no movies coming out anymore. Hollywood came to a complete stop. So obviously, if the movies are not coming out in theaters, they're not being released in home and digital. Or if they are, you don't need a big PR campaign to do it because nobody's doing anything anyways. So I ended up getting laid off from my job. in July of 2020, which was the biggest blessing in disguise, Joe, because I thought, you know what? Now let's do it. That now I can actually change my life, because there's no way that I could work full time in PR the hours that I was doing and also try to work in sports broadcast and become some kind of gambling analyst. So there was no sports obviously happening at the time, but it started to pick up again in the NBA. And I said, you know what, Katie, you're going to have to figure out how to make this happen. Let's change your LinkedIn so it's not all PR heavy. Let's create a website for yourself, start pitching yourself out. And, I gave myself a timeline of by football season of the 2021 season, I would have had to have this figured out. Otherwise, I'd have to go back and get another job in PR. There was no way that I could stretch it out any longer. And I did, and I really went for it. I did some smaller things. I started hosting for this company called The Game Day, which is a digital company, a gambling company. And so I did hosting for them, like social media hosting for them. And then I got a really cool opportunity with them for this Ride with Katie series, where I got to travel around every weekend.
I love that series. I have to say, I loved it.
Joe, it was so much fun. I mean, as a sports fan too, to be able to go and experience different stadiums, that's the dream, right? We all want to go and see where different people play, how
Absolutely.
tailgate, the different franchises. So I got to travel around every weekend and go to different games and tailgate with people and party with them, and then basically figure out what my bets were going to be. And then you just watch me sweating out my bets.
Yeah.
The the show. It was really, really
It was the best show, Katie. And I have to say, I've followed you from your very start. I love everything you were doing. When I saw you doing that, I was like, oh my God, she is just living it, right? It was the best show ever.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I had so much fun. I ended up not renewing with it because it did get to be a little bit too much, because then I got MSG. So I had given myself this timeline of, right before the football season of 2021. And I remember I was going to my Labor Day weekend. I was going to visit my family. My family has a lake house in northern Wisconsin that we go to every year, usually the 4th of July. But this year we went over Labor Day. And my friend had sent me this posting, and it was kind of a cryptic posting that was like looking for gambling personalities or experts for a regional show in New York, whatever, right? So my friend sent it to me, and I was packing and I was getting ready to go on vacation. I was kind of like, oh, I got a lot of stuff to do. I'm like, whatever, I created this website. I changed my resume. I changed everything. And I had the Ride With series that was going to be starting pretty soon. And so again, I just threw my hat in the ring. He gets back to me right away. And we're like, I see you live in Los Angeles. What are your ties to New York? Would you ever be interested in living in New York City? Now, I lived in New York before, so I was like, hey, I've already lived in New York. I know New York very well. I would love to come back if the right opportunity present itself. And then he was like, cool, could you hop on a phone call on Tuesday with the senior vice president of programming with MSG Networks? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm in northern Wisconsin with no internet access, but I will figure this out. Yeah. And so I did the test with them digitally. They rerouted my vacation. I ended up flying into New York, testing in studio. And by the time I'd landed back in Los Angeles, I had a job offer. And this was, again, right before the NFL season. So the timeline that I gave myself all worked out. It was pretty incredible. And I'm so happy. And I was able to transition my career. And now I get to talk about sports and gambling all day long. Like, pinch me.
Right. I'm so proud of you. You've done absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait to see where the rest of your career leads you, Katie, because I know huge things are happening for you and will continue happening for you. You're just dominating in this space.
Thank you so much. And I think, the thing is too, and I, you're obviously doing so well too. And I've been following you for a long time, and you've been killing it on this podcast. I mean, the amount of cool guests that you're getting, I'm honored that you even asked me to be on this. But, I feel like the way that I am, and I feel like we're a kindred spirit in that way, that like, I'm not a gambling tout, right? I'm not this like crazy professional. I like to liken myself as the everyday gambler. And I always say that I'm a degenerate sports gambler, but in nice packaging. So it's not like everything I say is not the sharpest play out there. Do you know what I mean? I have little degen bets that I throw down. I'm a homer every once in a while, and I'll bet on my own teams. And, it's just about embracing this kind of gambling culture. And I feel like this newer gambling audience is a lot different than maybe the older gambling audience that has been doing it for a long time, and they just want to watch programs that they give out super sharp plays and very analytical and a lot of numbers, and it's very male driven. And then this younger audience, have what I like to call, and I did not coin this term, but wagertainment, right? So it's gambling, but it's also entertaining and it's fun. And I just want to be a part of that part of the gambling space, the fun one, the type that's entertaining. And it's like a little bit degen too.
Yeah, absolutely. We need that entertainment value with this because at the end of the day, it is a lot of fun. And games are way more fun when you have some money on them. I definitely think so.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I now watch sports like you wouldn't believe. When before, again, I would only watch the 49ers or I'd catch a game here and there. And now I'm, watching hockey games that I would normally never care about and like sweating it out and screaming at the television. So, it makes everything fun.
Absolutely. We're getting some love for you in here from Facebook, Katie. I know everyone loves you out there. Let's talk about your love for the 49ers, though. Where did this come from? Was this family driven?
Yes. So very family driven. So I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from San Jose, the South Bay. And so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, which was like Joe Montana, Steve Young. I mean, it was the golden era of the 49ers. And I didn't have a choice. How are you going to grow up in the Bay Area with Joe Montana and Steve Young during the dynasty and not be a 49ers fan? So my growing up, big Super Bowl parties, lots of 49ers stuff. And then as we got older, my brothers first started, they were the ones that got the season tickets first at Candlestick. I was living in Los Angeles, so I wasn't really a part of it, but I started going to games with them more. And then when they moved to Levi's, I started becoming a season ticket holder as well. And to your point too, I love football. I love the beauty of football. I think it's the most fantastic sport to watch. But what I really, really love football is because it's what I do with my family game. My brother went to culinary school, so he got the early tailgating pass. I put on these crazy tailgates, and we tailgate with the same people for the past like 5 or 6 years. And, going to the NFC Championship game in 2019 and winning and being there with my family, I could get choked up even talking about it. It was an incredibly special moment. And even when we're not at the games, we have a group text and we're talking about it and we're sending Niners news all the time. Right now, of course, it's the Warriors, but I would say that the Niners is kind of the biggest thing for us. And so, they have that saying that football is family, and they're really talking about the players all being a family. But and I'm sure you can attest to this too. Sports a lot of the time is very rooted in family, and it's what a lot of families do together. And that's why I think that sports, and certainly football, is just so special.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I love that bonding time. I have, even with my children, although my daughter has decided that she likes the Raiders and I'm a Chargers fan, but that runs in my family, Katie. I tell you, we got it from my dad's side of the family. He loves rooting for the opposite team to everyone. So we would go to home games and he would be against the home team always.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a Madden thing. It really is a Madden thing. We all joke about it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have to talk about your 49ers. We got Jimmy G, Trey Lance. What do you think's happening there? Are you a Jimmy G fan?
I am a Jimmy G fan. You can see I've got a Jimmy G bobblehead right here. I'm a huge Jimmy G fan. And look, I don't understand why he gets the amount of hate that he does. I actually think it's because he's so good looking and people are like a little bit jealous of that. Is he the greatest quarterback that's ever existed? No, he's not. Is he a winning quarterback? Hell yeah, he is, because look at all of the wins that he has. A lot of people say like, oh, but it's not him. It's the defense. Yeah, we've got a top defense. Of course, we've always been defense driven. We've always been a team that runs the ball. So we don't necessarily need the quarterback that we're getting in Trey Lance, although I do think that what Trey Lance presents to us is going to be interesting. I don't have a good read on Trey. I haven't seen too much of him to be able to say. There's some people that act like he's like the second coming of Christ and like, oh God, Trey Lance. I read somewhere recently that people are putting more money on Trey Lance to win the MVP of the entire NFL next year than Tom Livingston. It's 200 to 1. And we don't even know if he's going to be the starting quarterback. So here's the thing. I love Jimmy G. The problem with Jimmy G is that he's incredibly injury prone. But let's take a look at it. He has been, of the last three seasons, he's been to 2 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl. Now, of course, we didn't win those games, and you can blame the quarterback. You can blame the play calling. You can blame whatever you want. But the reality is Jimmy is a winning quarterback. But Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have figured out that maybe he's not the quarterback that they want for the future. So I think they're going to move Jimmy. The only reason why I don't think he moved in this offseason is because of the shoulder surgery. Teams weren't able to see what he is capable of doing. He was going to miss significant time of training camp for that shoulder to heal. So that's why I don't think that he moved. But let's see what happens in training camp. If somebody gets an injury and needs a quarterback, I think he's going to be one of the first ones to go. If he doesn't go, and I know that he has talked to the Niners and they've kind of they're willing to restructure his deal a little bit, maybe take some money off of that cap in order to help him move faster, because I know that he doesn't want to be there anymore. And now it's getting awkward with Trey Lance. They would like to move Jimmy and Jimmy would like to move. However, if Jimmy stays, if nobody needs a quarterback and he's still on this roster, then it's the best man out. And so Trey Lance is going to have to beat Jimmy Garoppolo out. Now, if Trey Lance does, great. Maybe he's everything that we thought he was. If Trey Lance is not able to beat Jimmy and Jimmy wins the starting job, then Trey Lance isn't ready to be the starter. And then I'm totally fine with him sitting a little bit longer.
I would love to see Jimmy G stay there. I really do think he is one of those quarterbacks. I don't understand why he gets so much slack. I've always been a fan of him.
It's unbelievable. And it's like, what the people talk about the amount of interceptions that he throws, but it's like, who is why am I blanking? Matt
Stafford,
the Rams, Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford throws so many. He had one of the most interceptions in the league last year. So of course he won the Super Bowl. So I get it. But yeah, I think he gets a lot of unwarranted hate. And I think he's a great quarterback. And I think that he'll do good somewhere else. It'd be interesting to see, because Kyle Shanahan's offense is not an easy offense to learn. And so we'll see how he does maybe somewhere else. But I'm excited. I don't hate Trey Lance. I know a lot of people think that I hate Trey Lance. It's because I'm defensive of Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm just not willing to say that Trey Lance is the greatest thing that has ever existed when we barely saw him play in college and we barely saw him play last year. And he had some incredible moments and then he had some rookie mistakes, which of course is going to happen. But whatever the Niners decide to do, I'm on board. I am team Niners over any particular player, but I do love Jim and I want him to do well. And I honestly hope that he does move, just because it's an awkward situation now. Trey Lance out for the year. He said his goodbyes to the Niners at the end of the season last year. And, I think he wants to move and I want him to be happy.
Any plans to go to the games in the upcoming season?
Yes, this year. I couldn't go last year because I was doing that Ride With series and I was traveling every single weekend to different games. And that was like the hardest thing for me not to be able to go. So I absolutely plan on at least attending a couple Niners games. They have their opening game in Chicago, which my dad's whole side of the family is from. So I would love to be able to go to opening game in Chicago versus the Bears. Going to Soldier Field has always been a bucket list thing for me.
Oh, you definitely have to get there then, Katie. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today on the Joe Madden Sports Podcast. Now, can you tell everyone where to find your show, The Betting Exchange?
So if you live in the New York, greater New York area, in Connecticut, New Jersey, or New York, we are on MSG Networks every day from 5:30 to 6. If you have, I think it's called Quibi. No, it's not Quibi. I don't know. There is like an app where you can watch it. I know it's so terrible that I don't know this, internationally or even nationally. But for the most part, we're just a local network. So you can only really view it in the New York greater area. But I do share clips a lot on my social media. I'm at Katie Mox on Twitter and at Katie Mox Bets on Instagram. And I do have something super exciting coming up that I can't share yet, but that will be national and everybody can watch it and see it. And I'm hopeful that I will be able to announce in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, I can't wait for that announcement, Katie. Well, all the best. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Joe. Have a great day.
Have a great day, Katie.